everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and this is episode number 189. We have our resident cellular healing specialist, Dr. Dan Pompa, on the line, and today we welcome a very special guest and dentist to Dr. Pompa and to the stars. We're so excited to have you on the show, Dr. Gerry Curatola, and we have a really awesome topic today. We talk a lot about the mouth on Cellular Healing TV and how important it is to have a healthy mouth and all of the challenges with amalgam fillings and a lot of different mouth conditions that we encounter today. So we're going to really take a deep dive into understanding the oral microbiome today, which Dr. Gerry is an expert in. So we're really excited to delve in. Before we get started with the interview, let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Gerry. Dr. Gerry Curatola is a renowned biological restorative dentist with more than 30 years of clinical experience. He is the founder of Rejuvenation Dentistry, a multi-specialty integrative dental practice in New York City based on the principles of bioregulatory healthcare. Dr. Curatola studied neuroscience at Colgate University and attended dental school at the New York University College of Dentistry, where he now serves as adjunct clinical associate professor in the Department of Cariology and Comprehensive Care. Postdoctoral, Dr. Curatola studied nutrition and wellness at the Pratt Institute, Harvard Medical School's program in complementary and alternative medicine, as well as numerous programs on natural health. Dr. Curatola serves on the Fellowship Committee for the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine and is a member of the International Academy of Biologic Dentistry and Medicine, the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, and the American Dental Association. Dr. Curatola dedicated the Curatola Wing for Clinical Research at New York University to promote translational research in 2006 and has more than 20 years of oral microbiome research experience. Dr. Curatola is listed in the Guide to America's Top Dentists, the Leading Physicians of the World, and Top Dentists of New York. He's the recipient of the Acton Medal at NYU for outstanding contributions to the university. Dr. Curatola's new book, The Mouth-Body Connection, released by Hachette Publishing in 2017, explores the bidirectional relationship behind oral health and systemic wellness. So welcome to Cellular Healing TV, Dr. Gerry. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have to shorten that bio. I was tired. We're going to put my Boy Scout medals on there too.
I can show you. Gerry is a good friend of mine. He's not, he's a humble guy. All that long bio. And you know what? None of it matters, Gerry. What matters is you've been on Dr. Oz a few times. That's what matters most. I mean, honestly. And I sat in the same chair as Billy Joel. That's what matters.
That's right. That's right. Those are the fun things. It's funny. Dr. Oz has brought a lot of great people on the air, and which helped get attention to issues like toxic fillings, which I know is near and dear to you with True Cellular Detox and everything else. But it didn't go far enough, and it's programs like yours, Dan, that really delves deeper and gets into the meat of the matter, because a lot of the television shows are all fluff. And for example, I did a 45-minute protocol to show how everyone needs mercury fillings safely removed, and they took that out because the producers weren't interested in that. They wanted to do fluffy foods to eliminate mercury toxicity. But it's programs like yours and products like True Cellular Detox that really equip and empower the listeners and the patients.
We're not going to leave it out today. So in this episode, this is very important. We've got a lot of people requesting this. We're going to talk about what you do before, what you do during to make this a safe procedure. And here's where many dentists are falling short, and you're helping us bring the message. Detox afterwards. So we're going to get through that. But here's the thing. Before we get there, because that's where we had a lot of requests, your new book, and if you have one, hold it up. Let's talk a little bit about that, because you talk a lot about this microbiome connection, right? We talk on this show. We talk about the gut microbiome. Never talked about the oral microbiome. So just briefly before we get into the dental stuff, let's talk about that, because that's something that you're bringing to the forefront. You did in the book. And I thought that, it was well done as far as, getting this message out. Talk a little bit about it. What do we mean by the oral microbiome in the mouth-body connection?
Well, the oral microbiome is one of the 5 major microbial communities living in and on the body. Probably next to the gut, its big cousin, the oral microbiome is a complex community of bacteria that we used to think were bad, right? We went through this philosophy that bacteria are bad, kill it. And we had products like Listerine, kill germs, and Colgate Total with this triclosan, which is actually regulated as a pesticide. It's non-biodegradable, lots of problems with it. FDA is removing it. But that they were going to launch Colgate Total as the first antibiotic toothpaste. But the overuse of antimicrobials and antibiotics got a huge outcry in 1998 when they were launching this product. Got a huge outcry because we found out at the emergence of the Human Microbiome Project, we found out that these bacteria keep us alive. We're even going to the point where we're recognizing that we may be made of bacteria. You know, our mitochondria and the bacterium are the same size and they divide the same and all this. So this is a huge diametric shift, a paradigm shift in our understanding of health and disease, that we need bacteria to live. So we went from the germ theory, all bacteria bad, to people saying there's good and bad, and let's put more good in the mouth. You know, this idea of trying to use probiotics, which don't work. And I'll explain that a little later. But now we know that bacteria behave like people. If the environment is good, they behave in a beneficial and effective way. And what we discovered in the mouth is that these bacteria, when they're in balance, do amazing things like transport calcium and phosphorus from saliva to teeth. And it brings oxygen to your gums and things like that. So the oral microbiome is an essential part of our immune system. It actually promotes remineralization when it's healthy. It promotes healthy gums. So we do not have to nuke everything the way we've done in the past.
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, this is what people need to understand. I think that there was connections, you know, for years now, as far as bacteria in the mouth causing heart attacks, right? You know, that's why dentists give everyone an antibiotic, right? Because they're so worried about these bacteria affecting our body, right? And
right.
You know, so we knew that there was this connection, but
right. But let's
as we've learned about the gut microbiome, we're learning about how this microbiome goes beyond that. I mean, you know, it really, I'm telling you, this is my clinical experience now. We can't fix the gut microbiome when this microbiome is a mess.
Exactly. And you know what? You were one of the first to really talk about that, even before I put the book out. And I should show the book. 1 second.
Yeah. And make sure you show a tube of Revitin, because, you know, yeah, that's the book. Yeah, the Mouth Body Connection.
And it's on tape.
Yeah. I mean, you literally have to
whatever. But it's funny. The truth is in the book, which everyone's like, yeah, you know, the mouth and body are connected. Yeah, I know, you know, bacteria in the mouth, they get around the heart, they infect the heart. Well, let's talk about that, because the bacteria that they have actually dissected out of clots and arteries around the heart, Porphyromonas gingivalis bacteria. Porphyromonas gingivalis bacteria live in your mouth. They're in your mouth, Dan, they're in my mouth. How do they end up getting around the heart? How do they get past the blood-brain barrier and have been linked to inflammatory roots of Alzheimer's and all of these different things? When they flip from being helpful and benign and beneficial, and, you know, bacteria have this ability to morph, right? We call it pleomorphism. And they go from good bugs to really pissed off bugs. And by that, I mean, they are under attack. We're trying to kill them, right? We've been using oral care products that destroys, denatures, and degrades the bacteria in the mouth. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to kill it. If we were able to kill plaque, the way we say, you know, kills plaque on contact. If we were able to really destroy the microbiome in the mouth, we would have unleashed ecological Armageddon in our bodies and the environment. So we would have been defenseless against deadly pathogens in the environment around us. But these bacteria that live benign and even beneficial in the mouth in a disturbed environment,
Right.
end up doing some pretty bad stuff, not just in the mouth, but throughout the whole body.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. People unknowingly, they get their pockets checked, by a device, just measures these pockets, right? I mean, it should be under 3 millimeters, but when they get deeper, these pathogens are in there. Now, I had an experience. I want to tell my own experience, right? So y'all were in there, and I hadn't had this done in years, honestly, since mercury poisoning all the way through. And I knew I had some deep pockets, but I never did anything about it, right? And there were in some areas where I had some, stresses, etc.
Right.
And so you went in there with your laser, and in a couple of them you cleaned it up. The one back here, your laser fell in. And underneath a wisdom tooth that was partially impacted, boom, huge cavitation, major bacteria. Here's the whole story. So where you ended up pulling the wisdom tooth, decavitating it, cleaned it out perfectly, by the way, I literally had no pain there. And, I didn't even take a pain med, and I was thinking I might. I had them because I'm like thinking, oh my God, this could get really painful. I didn't. Day later, I start getting pain up here. And I'm going, Gerry, and you're like, I didn't do anything up there. I'm like, I know. So, but I know what happened. I had a wisdom tooth removed there years ago. I said, those bacteria ran from here to here, and now you're going to find a cavitation there. I went in a month later, whatever it was, and even before I got in your chair, your gal went up in there and said, I said, here's where the pain is. I showed her. She went in there and poked. She said, you have pus up in there. You went in with your laser, had to do another decavitation.
Exactly.
Here's the neat part of the story. So 5 days after that, I did the biome test. Okay, I don't know if it's a new test where we're using RNA to look at these bacteria.
Right.
The gal who went over, Dr. Helen, my test said, Dr. Pompa, I have to ask you this. Do you have any dental issues? I said, it's funny you asked that, because I had decavitation in these pockets of these anaerobic bacteria 5 days before that. So I was going to ask you that. She said, yeah, you have like 3 different bacteria that come from the oral microbes, that these guys are nasty anaerobes.
Exactly.
So the cool thing is I'm doing a retest to see if they even took root. The fact that I got rid of the sources, did they take root? Now, if I didn't eat the way I eat, do the things I do, those guys could have caused some serious havoc.
Absolutely. Because you were in such good systemic health, you did not have and I go into that in the book a lot, about the importance of nutrition and exercise and fitness and stress management. Very, very important, because a lot of these imbalances in the mouth happen because of an imbalance in diet and nutrition, an imbalance in our physical. I discovered a long time ago, for example, that runners, people that run, not marathoners who push their bodies to the max, but people who have regular, healthy, aerobic exercise have very low incidence of gum disease. That fascinated me. And then I realized, well, regular aerobic exercise encourages immune system competence and better circulatory function. So it's all about circulatory function. Why do cavitations happen around extracted teeth or around partially impacted teeth like you had? That happens because it's a great hiding place. It's warm, it's moist, it's dark. So if there's an imbalance in the microbiome in the mouth, some of those nasty anaerobes that you spoke of, even Lyme spirochetes, can harbor in a cavitation in the jaw.
Yeah. So, I want people to hear this because, I deal with very challenged people, and most of which they've changed their diet. They've done a lot of amazing things and still aren't well. And the first place I look at is right here.
Exactly.
Do they have hidden amalgams under crowns? Do they still have silver fillings amalgams? Do they have these cavitations, right? Do they have these deep-rooted pockets with infection? Yes. How many people have I sent to your office, right, just to get that check? Matter of fact, one of them who's probably watching, she can teach her, so she's one of my doctors, right? And I said, no, listen, by her history, I said, you have stuff going on here, right? And, without using her name, she didn't give me permission. Whatever. what did you find in there, right? You found infections, hidden infections. She would never have gotten well, Gerry, ever, if we didn't get that right. Because number one, she wouldn't have fixed this, and she wouldn't have fixed this.
Aetna health insurance, I'm just going to throw this out. It's a little bit of a tangent, but very relevant to what we're speaking about. Aetna Healthcare did a study on 145,000 patients who had major debilitating diseases, diabetes, heart disease, even cognitive impairment, stroke, and Alzheimer's. They found that improving the health of the mouth decreased healthcare costs related to the maintenance of patients with these major problems. And albeit it's in a conventional world, they took conventional approaches, but just improving the health of the mouth decreased healthcare costs by 21%.
Yeah.
They repeated the study, and they repeated the study in Japan. They got the same average of 21%. So it was something like 23% for diabetes and 20% and 19%. They got an average of 21% for 3 of the most expensive debilitating chronic diseases. By the way, that's a saving of almost $750 billion. So while the healthcare debate goes on in Washington about giving everybody health insurance, unless we're taking proactive measures to improve people's health and not just have more monies for hospitals, doctors, and pharmaceutical companies, we're really never going to be able to adequately bring the healthcare crisis under control. So what you're sharing, this important connection, this essential connection, and I love partnering with you because you recognize the link, and I'm on this side, and the dental side, trying to get my colleagues to understand the important role they have with functional medicine doctors in improving total body health.
Yeah, look, there's estimates that 85% of chronic disease starts in the mouth.
Yep.
So with that said, we're going to get to amalgam stuff, but we're talking infections, right, that disrupt the microbiome and therefore your whole immune system, your whole body, Alzheimer's, heart disease, you name it. Talk about, okay, so we talked about, wisdom teeth, teeth being pulled out is leaving cavitation. Number one, why does that happen? Number two, what are other reasons these infections? We talked about the pockets, but talk about some other things as people are sitting at home going, okay, well, that could be me.
So, many people have had their wisdom teeth extracted between the ages of 17 and 21 years old. Generally, the procedure that most oral surgeons or general dentists have used in doing oral surgery is you anesthetize the patient, you push the gum back a little bit, you go in there, you get the tooth out, and then you fold the gum tissue over. Some of them don't even adequately close the socket. They allow a blood clot to form, and that blood clot then becomes the primary stage of healing, where the soft tissue, the epithelial gum tissue, grows over, and then eventually the bone fills in. That was the theory, that this is the process that goes on. What we found, now that we're looking in the jaw, we're looking 3-dimensionally with CT, cone beam devices that can do a 3D look at the jawbone, which is the most diagnostic. There are some guys promoting this cavitation tapper and ultrasound, and they're really not as distinct and clear as seeing this on a radiograph 3-dimensionally.
Yeah.
We find a very large percentage of patients who have had wisdom teeth extractions have a cavitation. So just so for everyone listening, cavity is a hole in a tooth. Cavitation is something we refer to as a hole in the jaw. That area does not fill in. There is a void. And again, that becomes a perfect incubator for very serious pathogens and anaerobes.
Right.
So let's say someone who was diagnosed as Lyme disease positive, I just hit something on the computer. I was hoping we weren't disconnected. If you have something like Lyme spirochetes are in your body, and they may be in a kind of a recession or in remission, in a remission, but we know they're still in there.
Yeah.
And they look for places, basically, these spirochetes look for very sneaky places to hide.
Yeah.
And the mouth is a great place. It's warm, it's moist, it's, dark, it's, all those things. And it's an open system environment on the outside.
Well, and it protects itself from the immune system there. It hides in it. It doesn't need oxygen. These things are anaerobes, meaning they can not oxygen. You get this just nasty infections in where these root canals came out. And just to repeat,
another example. Yep.
How do we know? Well, first of all, if you had a wisdom tooth out, suspect that you might have a cavitation. Get a cone beam 3D X-ray is the most accurate way to tell. In the old days, we used to just drill in those areas and see if it falls through like you're drilling through drywall. It's like, okay, it's hollow. Then it's potentially
barbaric to get a cone beam or a CAT scan of the mandible, maxilla and mandible. Yeah. Much less barbaric. I mean, there are, I wanted to be a dentist from 6 years old, Dan, but I read a book on the history of dentistry, and the barbarism from Middle Ages on, is pretty crazy. So we have become much more advanced in our diagnostic. I mean, dentistry has done some great things. Yeah. Dentistry was the most was the first to recognize the importance of prevention and regular maintenance and going for regular cleanings. Dentistry was the first to introduce anesthesia. Right. So I have to throw that in there.
Another place that these infections hide is root canals. They pull the root out, and there's all these microtubules that feed the tooth, and they hide the anaerobe. So that's another unsuspecting place to look as well.
Perfect example. People don't realize that teeth are outside that enamel covering, which is on the coronal portion of the tooth, the top of the part of the tooth that's above the gum. The root of the tooth has a very, very thin layer of what's called cementum. Not big, but cementum is very thin. Many times cementum is lost when you get gum recession. And then you have basically a porous tooth with thousands and thousands of little tubules called dentinal tubules in the dentin. It's porous, mostly organic, more organic than enamel, which is inorganic. So what happens when you do a root canal? One of the worst things, and what we used to believe, again, I'm going to tell you what the practice was when I was in dental school and what we thought was real. By the way, when I was in dental school, I was told that mercury is magically locked into the tooth. It doesn't come off the tooth. It mixes with the other alloys, and we stick it in the tooth, and it just stays there. And now we know that that is not true, and it has been disproven. And as a matter of fact, not only does it come off and off-gas, but it off-gases a lot more with hot liquids, like a cup of coffee in the morning, or with chewing and bruxing. Some people
goes right into the darn brain.
Yeah, right there. And we'll talk about that too, because you've done a tremendous amount of work there, and this is one of the areas I love collaborating with you on a great deal, the protocol and what you do before, what you do during, what you do after. There's a lot of really good information here. But going back to root canals, let's talk about it. A nerve of a tooth dies. You get an abscess around that root. The theory was the source of the abscess was the dead nerve. So once we take the dead nerve out and clean it out with this mechanical process called root canal therapy, and we flush this bleach-like sodium hypochlorite solution that we try to get into the tubules. By the way, it only goes 100 microns, and there's probably 1,000 microns length in those tubules, maybe even more in some cases. But anyway, the idea was clean out the canal, wash out the tooth, stick an inert filling material that's bacteriostatic, and you're good. It's going to heal. You're going to be okay. So for years, early in my practice, I would see patients, and I'd see kind of something that looked funky around the roots. The problem is I was looking at a two-dimensional X-ray. So just as we could see cavitations with a 3D cone beam CAT scan for wisdom teeth. We need to use that same cone beam to look around teeth that had root canal therapy, because I could tell you almost 10-to-1 that you're going to see, if it was done on an abscess, a remaining cavitation, that if you went in there, you will find pathogens.
Mm-hmm.
And our, it's going to sound funny, but our way of saying whether that root canal is successful is patient's not in pain, tooth is stable, no evidence of pus or separation coming out of there. So no pain, no separation. The crown is on there. It's holding everything to, and we saved the tooth.
Right.
But the reality of what we know and what's been proven in multiple scientific studies is that these pathogens can be serious and can have, very serious consequences around the body.
Yeah. I can say, there's, if y'all just there's a feedback. Dangers of root canals. I mean, you'll see it linked to breast cancer. I've had clients who were doctors. Thyroid cancer. I had a throat cancer, and until they got rid of that source, they weren't healing. Once they got rid of the source, the healing came. I can tell you these things are dangerous. If 75-80% of disease starts in the mouth, look at these cavitations, look at these root canals. I got mine out, and it wasn't bothering me. It was a successful root canal. But after I did the research, I wasn't taking any chances. Hey, Gerry, do you have a thing of Revitin? Because as we leave this topic of bacteria, I want people to understand that you literally had to recreate your own toothpaste. Why? Because as we go in Whole Foods and other health food stores, even the healthy toothpaste, we both can look at and go, oh my gosh, I mean, these things are killing the microbiome, even the natural stuff, let alone I still see fluoride in some of them, which is a poison, which is a whole nother show. But, I mean, even the things like, tea tree oil, these things can be caustic for the good bacteria. Explain that and hold up Revitin, and then we'll move to silver fillings in the
I don't have any Revitin in my office.
Oh, you know what? Actually, Meredith, you might have one.
Revitin?
Yes.
Thanks.
I do.
We're here. We're live.
I could run out here.
Hey, bring me the Revitin.
My internet.
One second. A little intermission here. My very talented office manager, Rabina.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook.
Very balloon, and it's holding Revitin.
There you go. There you have it. That's all we needed to say.
There you have it. Well, this is Revitin. And you can go to, actually, you have it at Revelation Health.
I use it every day.
But here's the cool thing about Revitin. The cool thing about Revitin first is I started making this. My original belief was that, we need to feed the gums. There was a Japanese researcher that had biopsied diseased gums and found that diseased gums were deficient in 2 antioxidants necessary for proper cell function: vitamin C and coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10 is actually a cofactor in the Krebs cycle for the making of ATP. The most amount of ATP, that gas in the tank, so to speak, for our cells, is needed for heart, skin, but gums, healthy gums. So this is Revitin. If you put this amount of conventional toothpaste, even many natural toothpaste, in your mouth, you would have to call poison control. Yes, that amount on a toothbrush, swallowed, you would have to call poison control right away if you were using Crest or Colgate or any toothpaste with chemical fluoride. But there are some other unhealthy ingredients as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, even the natural stuff that people are using, I was that guy. That's all I use now is Revitin, but I was using that natural stuff. And then when you were showing how its effect on some of these natural things in the microbiome, I bailed, right away.
I mean, this product is called prebiotic. It's prebiotic toothpaste. Why is it prebiotic, and how did I get involved in this? I became involved when I recognized that everything we were using, both natural and synthetic, people don't realize whether you use a product with the chemical triclosan copolymer or tea tree oil and peppermint oil and neem oil and tulsi oil and all these other essential oils, that they are antimicrobial. Tea tree oil is such a powerful antimicrobial, it nukes everything in the mouth. So I've actually had to go to my colleagues who are biologic dentists and re-educate them first. I went to the IAOMT meeting, gave a keynote speech on the oral microbiome and how it's changing our approach in oral care products and how we take care of ourselves. And telling them that they, like ozone is great to use in an active infection. Mm-hmm. The laser I used in your mouth, in your cavitation, did 3 things. It vaporized diseased tissue. Mm-hmm. It brought ozone, because the light with the erbium chromium YAG, the light actually creates ozonated water. So I don't have to use a separate ozone treatment. I can use the ozonated water that's created by the erbium chromium YAG laser. Terrific thing. So it disinfects the area, the remaining area. But the third thing it does is it stimulates the surrounding bone. It promotes they found a wavelength of light that promotes cell division. So we're able to cause mitotic division in the bone cells so we can grow bone back faster. Mm-hmm. So this regenerative property of the BioLase, Waterlase 2.0, the one I use, that regenerative property really excites me because like stem cells, like I take blood from the arm now and we spin it down. We use this plasma-rich fibrin. Yeah. And it has stem cells and growth factors, and we can mix some of your own bone with that and make a biologic graft that heals like this. People,
you don't form cavitations. You don't form cavitations, and you can get those.
Exactly. So if you get a tooth out, I always recommend disinfecting, because it's not that there's so much infection in there, but if you don't graft and close that socket and just rely on a blood clot to form and do that, you have a much higher chance of developing a cavitation. So getting back to Revitin and the I want to talk about natural. Everybody believes natural is healthy, and there are products out there. Activated charcoal. Well, activated charcoal binds to everything. Yeah, it binds to everything. Mm-hmm. It actually strips the microbiome. Coconut oil pulling. Isn't that great? Coconut oil. It's a detergent action. Coconut oil, love it. It is a superfood. But coconut oil pulling in a disturbed, grungy mouth is okay. But if you do it every day and you think, oh, well, coconut oil is so good, let's just put it in toothpaste, it doesn't really have the prebiotic action. And what you do with coconut oil pulling, with activated charcoal, with bentonite clay, so they're looking at the mouth as basically unhealthy. Let's get those pathogens. What they don't realize are pathogens in the mouth are resident, excuse me, confirming what I'm saying. That's what my mother would say. Anyway, that's a confirmation. Pathogens in the mouth are resident bacteria that are in an imbalanced state. Now, I'm not talking about Lyme spirochetes. I'm not talking about infectious disease. I'm talking about Porphyromonas gingivalis, Strep mutans bacteria, Fusobacterium nucleatum, who are really, they are what we call the badass anaerobes. That Fusobacterium nucleatum go all over the body. They actually carry other bacteria in the mouth past the blood-brain barrier. They live in the mouth. And they live very peacefully and even benign and beneficially. But when they are disturbed, when that environment is disturbed, think of it like this, and this is a good analogy. You know, there were these beautiful brownstone blocks in Brooklyn where my parents grew up. And I remember my dad taking me to Bushwick, Brooklyn, where there were these beautiful brownstones. You could see the architecture of them were beautiful. And at one time, you know, they were, it was a very elegant, beautiful area. But then the environment changed. There were economic conditions, there were welfare programs, and there was a migration going on because of changing economic conditions where you had a ghetto form in this same area. And when the ghetto formed, you had gangs and thugs. And there were, you know, when I went through there in the late 1960s, and my father took me through there, and I was a young kid, and I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. This is scary, you know, and there are gunshots. Well, you know, and the thugs, where do they hang out the most? In between, in the alleyways. Those are like the interproximal areas in your mouth, right? Areas in your mouth. So when I went on Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz said, should we clean between the teeth? Do you need dental floss? There are some studies you don't need dental floss. And I said, dental floss removes garbage. I said, not using dental floss or an interdental cleaning is the equivalent of leaving garbage in the alleys on New York City side streets, where on a hot summer day, it starts to smell and then the rats come out. So it's a very imbalanced environment rather than a clean, beneficial environment. So it's all about restoring balance to that community. And I can say, and I show slides in my presentations now of these renovated communities in Brooklyn that's become very chic to live in Williamsburg and Bushwick and Greenpoint and these other communities where there's rehabilitation. We can do that rehabilitation in the mouth by promoting microbial homeostasis.
Yeah, bring in the good guys.
Rebalance the environment, and the good and the bad bacteria actually go back to being good.
Yeah.
I had a patient come in.
A lot of people think you can put a probiotic in the mouth, and it's not true. We don't want to go on. We want to move.
If you could put a probiotic in the mouth, then you could put a conbiotic in the mouth. So there's a reason why E. coli and salmonella and, you know, eat a bad hamburger, they will wreck your gut, because that's basically more of a closed system. You got to get past the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, of course, but you have a closed system. And we find now that more really weird infectious diseases in the gut, because people taking protonics and things that stop the stomach acid, which is this protective way. So we're seeing disturbances in the flora of the gut because of these drugs that treat the symptoms, heartburn and acid stomach, treating the symptoms but not the cause.
Yeah. That's all right. It's a really important topic, right? But let's talk about amalgams. You know, I think most of our audience understands that these silver fillings, they leach mercury, the life of the filling. Yes, it gets in your brain, turns to inorganic mercury, and will stay there. Even if you got your fillings out, that inorganic mercury has a long half-life for years and years to come, unless you do the right protocol. After they come out, many people are sick. I got my amalgams out 10, 20 years ago, but I'm still sick. Yeah, the mercury's still locked here. But let's talk about the beginning protocol, okay? So a month before I send someone to Gerry, I'm putting them on liver support, and L-liver is a product we've used for years to strengthen the liver. Kidney support, because those areas are going to be challenged, right? Gut support, because we use some different bacterias and restore, MBC. I mean, these things are all really important. And then we need cellular support. We want to get the cells working, right? So, you know, some fats for the membrane like Vista, you know, Moors, because methylation. So anyways, we upregulate the cell function. We get the downstream pathways protected. That's what we do for a month before. Now, Gerry, talk about what you do to protect the patient during the filling, because this is where a lot of people get more sick, is during the filling. Now, by the way, let me add one more thing. They come from me, I give them 3 or 4 bind right before the appointment for anything that go into the gut, and 3 or 4 right after. Now it's your turn.
I want to back up 1 second. For anyone out there who's like, well, you know, I went to my dentist. These fillings are fine. Again, just like root canal, we were thinking, as a dentist, we were thinking that the mercury's magically locked in. We know it's not. And so anyone out there who thinks like, well, I have a couple of fillings, no big deal. they have to understand that our idea of success is the patient wasn't dying. Okay. And it's interesting that I have done, we talked about this just last week, Dan, that I was doing, provocative urinalysis with DMSA just to see what their metals look like. The mercury doesn't show up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's lead. They're getting lead, and the mercury is like just a little bit higher normal, this and that. It's not there because it's gone. It's in the brain already. So, and the thing is, that's the thing that people have to understand, that just because it's not showing up doesn't mean it's not there. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's not there. Because the ADA goes into all of this very defensive posture that there's no studies that show that mercury is harmful and da-da-da-da-da and this and that. Yet, we have the amount of autism and we don't want to get into what a toxic world we live in. But anyway, getting it out, what do we do? So I went on Dr. Oz and I talked about the importance of getting this out. They came in my office and taped 40 minutes of this protocol that I'm going to share right now and then cut it out from the show. So these patients went to their regular dentist who didn't, A, they didn't even believe the mercury was harmful, and B, they didn't even believe that they needed to use a special protocol to protect the patient. In actuality, removing a dental amalgam is the greatest amount of exposure other than when it's first put in and over the life of this filling when it's off-gassing slowly over time, right? And there's a video people can see called The Smoking Tooth. And there's another documentary called Evidence of Harm. I was actually a producer. I was a producer, executive producer on that. It's called Evidence of Harm.
Right.
And I don't know if you have that, but I can get that available to you for your website and everything too.
That's where we get that, Meredith, for the website, because it's fantastic. And he's right. Google the Smoking Tooth video and then get that. I'm telling you, if your dentist doesn't believe it, anyone
Just
get them.
your dentist. Don't you, dentist? And, they say that, well, when saliva is going and we use water and, when saliva is going in the mouth, you don't see as much off-gassing. And I'm like, yeah, because you're swallowing it. You're swallowing it now. So the reality is, and the ADA does say if you have 6 or 7 amalgams, you should consider having them removed. And of course, but this is not to mention the fact that amalgams make teeth weaker. It's like the equivalent of leaving a hunk of metal in a tooth that when you bite on something hard puts stress on the lateral walls of the teeth to crack. So anyone who's had dental amalgams, by the way, if your dentist calls it a silver filling, tell him he's lying. It's a silver colored filling, but it's 52% mercury, 26% silver. That's a lot.
It disrupts the microbiome, the bacteria here and here, as it's vaporizing into the brain. So
Exactly. So let's go over the protocol. The first thing we do, we give the patient 4 bind. And I also give them selenium. So I give them 200 micrograms of selenium. So I like selenium because it's a good binder in the urinary tract, whereas the bind is great for the digestive tract. So after that time, when we prep the patient, we use a nitrile rubber dam, of course. We use a high-speed evacuation, low-speed and regular dental evacuation. And then my assistant and I, I'll get into what we do to protect, because I'm interested in protecting myself and my patients. 15 years ago, I had toxic levels of mercury in my system, and I had never placed a dental amalgam after my 1 month out of school. 1 month out of school, that was 1983. I have not placed a dental mercury filling since 1983. But I'm faced with removing them all the time.
Yeah.
So protection for my staff and I, which I'll explain, but protection for the patient, 100% oxygen on the patient's nose. The hair is covered. The face, we have actually like almost like a veil that can go over the patient's face. we have the patient completely draped. The air in the room is ionized with a mercury vapor ionizer that blows out billions of negatively charged ions, because mercury vapor is positively charged. It's H plus. And there's actually a metal grate at the foot of the chair that has a screen over it, and occasionally that grate has to be wet, and you will see like a gray dust on there from the invisible. Remember, mercury vapor is invisible, tasteless, and odorless. So it's very, very sneaky. It's literally invisible. So, and then when you see it manifest on this plate, it's kind of surprising, because that's what you're breathing in.
Right.
So having that protocol, when they leave, I give them 4 bind to take after, and then I give them a couple of packs of the chlorella that our friend
Energy bits.
Recovery
bits, and it's pure chlorella. And I actually found it to be very good quality. She does it from a farm chlorella, because a lot of chlorella came from Japan. Northern Japan was contaminated after Fukushima. So that's protocol. That's a protocol. I never do more than 2 at a time. I will do a third if they're 2 tiny ones. I'll do a third, but I do them in a quadrant. I never cross over to the other side of the mouth. I'll do one side, then the other side. And there's 4 quadrants, right? 4 quarters of the mouth. So we always do a quadrant, but no more than 2 large or 3, 2 medium, and 1 small, but not more than that. So anybody, if you go to a dentist, I've had people, maybe if they fly in from all over the country and internationally, they fly in and they're like, "Doc, do them all in one day." And I'm like, no, you'll have to make several trips, or we can do it if you stay for a week. We could do it beginning of the week, end of the week, but give them a few days to rebound and go to some good New York restaurants.
So. The best. Gerry knows the best. Yeah. And then, I like, within a week, I like to get the detox started, and, I actually like to give it some time, because if after all that, some mercury ends up in the gut, if you're taking real binders, you can methylate it. So we just give it some time, a few days just to pass, make sure everything kind of clears.
Definitely.
Then we start the detox. And actually we've started also taking the cyto detox and having people swish it in the mouth, because they're showing that it binds the vapor out of the tissues, out of the buccal.
I just started doing that.
I know. We were just talking about it. So having them swish with some of that.
It makes perfect sense, because again, it's another binder, and that hydrolyzed clinoptilolite fragments in different sizes and all. It's a great binder.
Yeah, because the vapor actually gets in the buccal tissue, and then we do all this perfect protection. Meanwhile, then you're absorbing it, whereas that'll pull it out of the mouth tissue. So
the other thing I do is, because we're binding a lot of stuff in the mouth and there's a microbiome there, we want to feed your healthy oral bacteria. And I give them Revitin, and I have them use it as a gum mask. So this is not just a toothpaste you brush with and you rinse with, but I have people put it on their finger, rub it on their gums, and just let it soak into the gums.
Right.
Everything in this product is meant to, it's edible, but it's meant to be a prebiotic to foster a rebound of the oral microbiome. Because when you have this done, sometimes we have to put the dam under the gum. It could irritate the gums a little bit. Revitin is great for that. And again, to restore a healthy oral microbiome.
Yep. Well, listen, we've run out of time, man. This is such a huge topic, right? And I know you have a patient, and I do too. But I'll say this. We want to listen on the detox. We have other shows, Meredith and I have explored that deeply many times, but number one, you have to use real binders. Most people don't. Number two, to get it out of here, you need to be taught the process. It's years, not months. People come out and get their amalgams out and go, "Oh, I did a mercury detox for 2 months." 30 years it bioaccumulated. Really? You have to learn the process to get it out of the brain correctly. Yeah. So there's the big sign. So Meredith, I'm going to turn it over to you. Gerry and I, we love this topic.
Love you, brother. Give me a hug.
Oh, you guys are so sweet. I know we have like 1 minute, but I know I get these questions. So if you could super quickly clarify. So we do four bind, and before and after the procedure typically. Now, when are you swishing the cyto?
Right after.
Right after. Okay, great. And then how long after do you wait to typically start the body detox?
Yeah, and Gerry, by the way, you could actually swish some even before to have it in there, and right after.
What I've been doing, just so you know, I've been doing 5 to 10 drops under the tongue before, and let it swish it around the mouth. But after, when I take the rubber dam off, I can use it again.
That's exactly.
Immediately after removing the rubber dam, I have the patient rinse completely, and then it's great to use a binder.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and when do we start the body detox? So I know you said kind of a couple days. Like, do you have kind of a gauge you like to wait?
At least 4 or 5 days. You know what I'm saying? And then go on. Now, again, you don't want to wait too long either, because then what happens is once the source is gone, the body will start mobilizing. And, so you don't want to do it too soon right away. Give it a couple days. And, and that Huggins always said that too. I mean, Hal Huggins always said, kind of wait a few days, let things move through.
Exactly.
And then don't wait too long, because people will start mobilizing now. Most people, by the way, either will say, okay, I got them out and I actually felt some better. And then they do nothing. And we call it a honeymoon period. And all of a sudden, about 9 months to a year later, these other symptoms start, and they don't remember that, oh my gosh, I got my amalgams out, but now I'm being affected a year later. So don't make that mistake.
Awesome. Well, that really clarifies things. And I know you guys have to go, so maybe Dr. Gerry, we can do a part 2 in the future, because this is such a huge topic.
We need a part 2 on
awesome.
And we can, we'll gather up a lot more questions, I'm sure. So, Gerry, love you, man. Thank you.
Love you. Love you.
Thanks so much, everybody. If you guys need to drop off, you can. I'm just going to let our viewers and listeners know. So if you want to try Revitin for yourself, go to revelationhealth.com and use the code HEALTHYSMILE at checkout for 15% off. We love this toothpaste. It's amazing. It tastes delicious, and it really works. I feel like it's whitened my teeth, too. So it's awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Dr. Gerry, for creating that and for being on the show. Thank you, Dr. Pompa, as always. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.